Slowing down at home can be a monumental task, and in fall, this seems extra complicated because life is busier in fall, but there's a natural tendency to want to slow down. So today, we are both getting things done and slowing down for fall by weaving in sourdough stencil art, Dutch oven slow cooking with a delicious red wine beef stew, and a few fall homemaking tasks. A slice of fresh, warm sourdough bread is my heart's desire on a cozy fall day, but what I also like about sourdough is that it helps me slow down at home because it provides a lot of downtime. So here I am preheating 2 Dutch ovens at 500 degrees, and I have been struggling with the bottom of my bread burning, so I put a cookie sheet in the bottom of the oven to help distribute the heat from the bottom of the Dutch ovens. While they do their thing, I also grabbed some sourdough banana bread from the freezer. You can get this recipe in the description box below. I just put a video about this. And then I have some time to get a few things done while that preheats for about 20 to 30 minutes or so. Once the oven is preheated, I like to get the bread right out of the fridge because I like to bake it cold to get that oven spring. Just grab a piece of parchment paper, flip your dough over, and get them prepared for scoring. This day, I experimented with sourdough stencil art. This is a cake stencil that I put right on top of my sourdough, and you'll see here, this was my very first time doing this. I was way too heavy-handed on the first loaf. So when I take the stencil off, you can see the flour built up way too much. But that's okay. I still scored it, and then I tried again on the second loaf, and I just dusted it rather than dumping the flour on top, and it worked much better. Until recently, I baked 1 loaf of bread at a time because I only had 1 cast iron Dutch oven, but I just got a new stove Dutch oven, which I really like. I think it bakes a little bit better than the Lodge. I'll drop a link for it in the description box below. But here I am baking 2 at a time. I like doing 1 at a time because it spreads out the amount of time and I can do other things during that bake time, but I have to get stuff done this day. So I put the lid on both Dutch ovens and put them both in the oven at the same time. I will say doubling up has changed the bake time a little bit. I think it's the overall density in the oven. So if you do this, just be mindful of that during the baking process. While that's in the oven, it's a great opportunity to slow down, but also do a few homemaking chores like folding laundry, my least favorite task, but it's better when you're chilling on the couch. Once your first bake is done, take the lid off the Dutch oven and put it back into the oven at 475 for about 15 minutes or so. This changed for me. I thought baking 2 loaves at a time would require more time. It actually required less, and I think it's because the oven was really hot with 2 Dutch ovens in there. So just adjust as necessary. While those were doing their final bake, I ran out into the garden and cut a few fresh flowers for a bouquet that I'll make later. These were done, so I took them out of the oven. I was a little nervous about my art, but it turned out really awesome. I could not be happier with my first try at sourdough stencil art. The one on the left worked much better with the dusting of flour, and the art actually stayed on. The one on the right, where I used too much flour, all that flour just wiped off immediately. The bread had to cool, so we'll check it out in a second, but some people think that making flower arrangements might be a frivolous homemaking task, but it brings me great joy. It helps me slow down and stay in the moment, so therefore it is an important homemaking task. So on this day, while the bread cooled off, I made a couple flower arrangements. The bread turned out great. The bottom was not burned, the cookie sheet worked, and the bread is beautiful. As I mentioned before, I really like my stove cast iron Dutch oven. Not only does it bake great bread, it also works great as a slow cooker in the oven. And what I like about doing this is that when you use your Dutch oven as a slow cooker, just like a countertop slow cooker, you have 5 or 6 hours to do whatever you need to do while your food cooks. So on this day, I chopped up celery, carrots, onion, and sauteed them. And then I threw in some beef stew meat and cooked everything until it was tender. And then threw in a little bit of leftover red wine. If you're using wine, use wine that you would actually drink. And then I added in canned tomatoes, 2 boxes of chicken stock. Beef would be better, but it's all I had. Tomato paste, a little bit of garlic, and then I seasoned it to taste. I used cumin, bay leaves, and paprika. Once everything is in there, throw in a little Worcestershire sauce, however you say it, and bring to a boil. Once it's in a boil, put it in the oven at 250 degrees and chill. On this day, I did a little bit of reading. I reorganized my home for fall. I like to add cozy blankets in baskets, so that way if you're relaxing in the chair, you can grab a blankie. I also threw in a few books in the basket because I'm an avid reader. I lit a candle and enjoyed the afternoon while my food was cooking. Now, the reality is of this situation, I cannot have candles lit on a table like this because I have a 2-year-old. But while dinner is cooking and she's napping, I gift myself this luxury of slowing down and creating the aesthetic that helps me relax and enjoy my slow days at home. I swapped this out for some Halloween library books for my daughter and a pumpkin, and here is exactly why I can't have nice things. The pumpkin lasted on the table approximately 2 to 3 seconds after nap time, but that's okay. I put these things here for her to enjoy. The stew stayed in the oven all day. I think it was about 6 hours or maybe even a little bit more. But when it was time to eat, I just pulled it out of the oven, gave it a good stir, and then I served it up with some fresh sliced sourdough bread that I made earlier that day, and it was really good. For my family of 3, this lasted us about 3 meals. My favorite slow time of day is the end of the day when the house is clean, the kitchen's clean, the lights are dim, and I feel like I can truly slow down without having to balance many things. There are a lot of real and socially fabricated pressures to always do more, but it's really important for us, especially as women and mothers, to find the time to really slow down. Thank you so much for tuning in to my YouTube channel where we elevate the everyday from scratch and at home, and I will see you again next time.